Welcome to Latinas from the Block to the Boardroom, where wisdom comes from everywhere. This is a podcast about generational wisdom shared to help build a bridge for future generations and to build stronger communities through education, technology, and health. Welcome to Latinas from the Block to the Boardroom. Hola, mi gente. This is Teresa Gonzalez of Latinas from the Block to the Boardroom. I just want to thank all of you with sincere gratitude from my heart for supporting this podcast. We are entering our season 4 and appreciate the folks that support us, from technology, from the squadcast.fm platform to the designers and media folks and audio engineers on my team. Because without your support and also following us through all our social media handles, this platform and my voice and the voices that I bring on this platform could not be made possible without you. So muchas gracias, si se puede. Buenos dias, mi gente. This is Teresa, and we are moving into the hoodie weather, the sweater weather, the PSL and your Uggs weather, or maybe your bear paws. I see you out there. And we want to make sure that you are prepared for the conchas, the chocolate, the tamales, all the wonderful things that make us and empower us through our food, music, our soul, and community. This month especially, which is known as the ever-present Hispanic Heritage Month, Latinx Month, Latino Heritage Month. It's a celebration of all of us coming together with our brothers and sisters across all of Latam. But one thing I want to mention is we're an influencing buying power. And we get 1 month out of the year, which is September, which is interesting to me because that doesn't give us more opportunities to showcase our products and services, which is left to us. And that's okay because we share things more through technology. We bring more services and products across our families, in our communities. We share a lot more through the media than we can in social media platforms. So why is this all important? Because we need to recognize the importance of this month as giving us only 1 month when we have the entire year and future years ahead of us to grow and to be significantly important as a brand influencing community. And when you have $3 trillion that are available in the market, which we are the highest consumers of products and services, we are 62 million strong in the United States. We have registered more than we ever have for the U.S. Census and for voting. That's powerful. 1 month is not enough to celebrate our wonderful presence. So who I want to welcome to the podcast today to talk about this brand awareness, our influencing power, none other than Vanessa Vigil. She is a U.S.-born Latina with 17 years of experience in media and marketing, working from the agencies and publishing side of advertising, but is now the Chief Brand Officer of Mitú under the NGL Collective, which is the Next Generation Latinx. This is to become the largest 100% focused digital-first Latinx media powerhouse in the country, helping advertisers connect with coveted audience regardless of our age or language preferences. So who is under the NGL Collective and why has Mitú partnered or become a part of this organization? John Leguizamo, the co-founder and partner of the NGL Collective, said, "With NGL Collective and Mitú's shared commitment to amplifying the voices of the Latinx community, our platforms and reach will expand. We will create more opportunities for Latinos in the front of and behind the cameras to speak directly to our communities and influence how America sees us and how we see ourselves." So Vanessa is going to be at the helm of these combined markets of Mitú and NGL, which will be comprising of We Are Mitú, Somos Mitú, Fierce, Crema, and she's excited to be working along with the leadership teams in both organizations. So let's welcome Vanessa Vigil from Mitú and the NGL Collective. Hola, Vanessa. When we were talking previously, there's various channels within Mitú. It's not just one big company, correct?
It's a family. So we always liken it to, yeah, like it is a familia of brands, really. We call it, our brands. And so we affectionately call it WAM, which is because of the handles is We Are
Mm-hmm.
Mitú. That's sort of the flagship one that started it all. And, that is always rooted in culture, nostalgia, comedy. It's that very lighthearted, again, we like to say it's a channel that makes you feel like, oh, we really all had the same childhood
Mm-hmm.
growing up. Then you have Fierce, which is kind of like the woke older sister who went off to college. And, so that launched in 2017 and was started by Wendy Barba, who's still with the company. Then, Somos Mitú has also been around from day one. It's more Spanish forward content. We're looking to develop that even
Mm-hmm.
further. Crema launched last year as our music vertical.
Oh,
And then Things That Matter is our baby brand that launched earlier this year in February. And so that's really providing a platform for resources, sort of that social conscious side that we know is really important to our community. And so there's some shared DNA in that they're all Mitú brands, but they all get to have sort of their different content pillars and personalities because we know that our community isn't a monolith, right? And so people may want to follow us for sort of the lighthearted, the memes, but we also know that they expect Mitú to be front and center to bring them things that matter as well. So, whether it's news and policies, resources that are affecting our community, that's equally important. So that's what we're really excited to build out and continue to flourish in terms of both the content and hopefully some real life activation.
great. That brings a lot of thoughts into my brain about your journey and why you decided to pursue this, bringing up that family cultural aspect and relating to different family members, right? And everyone gets to have their own identity. They all show up to the table to eat, tamales
Yeah,
at Christmas time, right? So
exactly. Yeah, you've got your artist, you've got your college grad, you've got, your entrepreneur, you've got your silly cousin, sort of everybody comes together.
right.
Yeah.
So tell me about this journey that you started on here, because I know you're a first generation Latina, correct?
I am.
And you're based out of LA. So tell us a little bit about that journey. I mean, what was a pivotal moment and influence for you to get started on this?
Yeah, so I am born and raised here. I actually was born in Anaheim to Mexican parents, Mexican immigrant parents. My dad he really grew up in TJ, border
Mm-hmm.
town kid, and my mom grew up in Yucatan. And so being Southern California, sort of born and bred, our culture's always been here. We have a pretty strong presence. I went to college. I grew up in a suburb of LA, so West Covina
Mm-hmm.
area, very kind of middle class upbringing. So I went to college on the East Coast. I went to Amherst College, which was a very small liberal arts
Mm-hmm.
college and a very unique experience to get away from Southern California, not just weather wise, but, culturally, it's very
Right,
different
right,
when you realize, like, oh, half the population doesn't look like me.
right.
But it was a great experience. I learned a lot. I also formed some really tight bonds with the few Latinos that were there. We just all sort of gravitated to each other, and a lot of us were from
That's what
California.
we do.
Yes, we find each other. Like, we're just like, you're one of us, right? And we'd get together. It was like a lifesaver. So when I graduated, I was home every chance I got during the breaks. I loved going out there, but I also loved California. It cemented for me, this is home and this is where I want to be. So I came back and I started interviewing with agencies, and I came upon Arenas
Mm.
Entertainment. It's a Latino owned agency that worked primarily on entertainment accounts. And so I believe there was two openings at reception and one in media. I didn't even know what media was at the time, but it was entry level. And so I said, sure, it's something to do with marketing and I'll figure it out.
There you go.
The ironic thing is that, media is very math forward. And I did not touch math in my 4 years at Amherst College. It was, one of the few schools that don't have a core
Hmm.
curriculum. But anyway, I started developing my career in media. And I think what really for me, the click and the light switch was I always grew up hearing about, my mom was so wonderful, and I'm so thankful for this, about like she was just always infusing these stories about, our
Mm-hmm.
culture, and like why you should be proud, and why am I, driving in the car, like, this is Pepe Aguilar and this is his mom and she was a famous actress and the this and that. And like she just was always infusing our culture, like every little moment she got. And I don't think you realize that when you're living
Mm-hmm.
it, until in hindsight, it's something you tap into. That's this fire that's always been there. And I was very lucky, I think, to find in my first job sort of that perfect marriage of being able to bring my full culture, my full experience and perspective, tied with, marketing and
Mm-hmm.
media, which is something that I always really loved. So that really kicked off. I've always been in multicultural marketing, multicultural strategy, especially on the media side. So what that means is really the advertising
Right.
side, so paid media. It evolved. Obviously, when I started, digital probably wasn't even a thing. I graduated college in 2004. So the media industry evolved a lot. I spent several years there working on the Universal Pictures account. And then I branched off with my boss from that agency. She started a small shop, and, I spent several years with her. And then I joined one of the Omnicom
Mm.
agencies to work on the Disney account
I didn't even
as a
know
multicultural
that.
strategist. Yes. And it was incredible. It was such a shift in the experience of when you're in a multicultural agency and a Hispanic agency, like I was for so many years, you're surrounded by like minded people. And, everything's just sort of a given because you all understand the culture. And that's a little bit, what I love about where I am now with Mitú. But joining a big general market agency, it's also really valuable to see, okay, how does the multicultural and the Latino strategy fit into the bigger
Right.
picture, of how do you market a Disney film? And that is an incredible art and an incredible feat. And we are a very important part of it. But it was really valuable to learn sort of, okay, how do all the pieces shift together and to get that full picture view. So I really just loved that opportunity. I then went on and worked on the Universal account for a little bit, again, as a director, also on multicultural strategy. And then I got the chance to join Mitú, which I had always been a fan of as a
Mm-hmm.
client, as an advertising client. I was just such a fan of Mitú when it came on the scene. I felt that it was the only media company, especially digital media company, that just sort of was on par with the big guys, with anyone from a BuzzFeed to, a Complex to a Vice. Now, of course, we're not that size, but the content felt like it just stood on its
Mm.
own. The client services was always great. And it really piqued my interest and my admiration in terms of, here was a company that was really kind of getting it right. And so I always was trying to, find my way in, and I finally did. And I came over in 2019 to run the brand partnerships team, which was their media and account management team and their creative strategy team as well, working with advertiser partners. So I kind of came to the other side of the table to, work with advertisers, that's where the majority of my background has been.
That's interesting. So you switch sides, so to speak, right?
Yes, exactly.
You went to the content side, which it sounds like that's where your heart was. So you bring up a couple of interesting things that I'd like to ask because of where you were and where content was back in 2004 and then 12. I want to take it in 8, maybe 5 year increments. The technology within those increments of time have evolved tremendously. And a lot of that has to do with the way we use technology. And then also, you bring up advertising, which I'm very fascinated by as a multicultural agency that you worked for prior to Me Too. And you were a strategist. I'd like to learn a little bit more about when you say strategist and multicultural. And I understand big brands try to partner to understand where they can position their products and how they see a market fit based on opportunities. But in that arena, what were the challenges, or did you see any challenges in that? Like, so how did you come to them when I'm just going to flat out say it. A lot of them get it wrong.
Yeah. And I think that's where, what I touched on in terms of understanding the big picture, because again, it's one thing to come in when you're kind of in an echo chamber. And, one thing I've heard a lot in our industry, for example, is, okay, well, if Latinos are 20% of the population, why don't we get 20% of the budgets? And that's an oversimplification that it becomes an easy rally cry to get behind, but in practice, it's very different, right? And so that's where I think I learned a lot working on a big general account, is that it's not that easy. The money is allocated and needs to be spent in a way that it's going to get the most mileage, that is hitting sort of all the KPIs, is reaching as many people. Disney would always say that their target audience is people 2 plus, 2 to 99. It's everybody. They've always had tremendous box office goals that they meet and they exceed. And, they beat their own records. They're their own best competition. It was a really good challenge for me to understand, how do you make the case and the value to not just say, well, we deserve it because we're 20% of the population. Yes, I think we can all understand that, but learning how to make the business case of why, the pot of money needs to be allocated a certain way. Why is it important? Especially, I think, in entertainment. Entertainment can be a very universal product, right? Who doesn't love a Disney film? Who doesn't love a Marvel film, right? It's not a hard thing to sell. But, so then you start to dig a little deeper and you say, okay, well, what about the people who may not be the shoe-in, right? Like, where is sort of the incremental opportunity? Is it Latina women who are maybe not that core Marvel fan, who are not a Lucasfilm fan? And so how do you start to appeal to them, And that's where I've always been a big proponent also of thinking first as a consumer. If I'm not bought into that, what would it take to really capture my attention, right? And so, I remember we did, when I was still on the agency side with Mitú, there was a partnership. The Avengers universe had gotten so large, and, I think it was about 10 franchises in, and the marketing challenge was really, okay, there's sort of a massive cohort of people that are fans. We know they're going to show up. How do you now extend beyond that and make that bigger? And so there was a piece of content that was done with Mitú at that time that was really about breaking down the different Avengers characters, like telenovela, characters. Right. And it was between, kind of a young millennial at that time and their mom. And it was like, okay, so this is how you start to broaden the circle, and this is how you grow it. And that's a business case. Nobody is going to say no when you say there is a potential incremental box office and incremental consumer base there. And so I think that's where you start to really think more critically about it, and it sharpens the argument, and it sharpens sort of the rationale for why you do need to go outside of that core circle. But, and it's that perfect marriage of art and commerce and business insights, and understanding how to really make that case and not just say, well, this is our number, so we deserve it. Give me my due diligence.
Yeah, so. I totally get that. You have to make a business case, and sometimes before they give you the money, they really want to see the numbers, and it's like, that's really hard to do. And because now, I'm going to throw technology in here a little bit, because advertising has changed tremendously over the last, I want to say, 8 years on platforms, since they're being utilized more through social media, but also just in the two biggest realms on the planet, which is Google and Facebook.
Yeah.
And when you start talking about budgets and numbers to promote things, and how Mitú and they're everywhere, right? Your content is everywhere. But when you start putting ads out there and advertising and putting a marketing strategy behind a multicultural endeavor, how do you partner with the right company when you have X amount of dollars and they say, oh, we can get you this audience, and they tell you where they're going to get it, but it may not be a fit because you're like, well, that platform doesn't really favor the Latino market. So how are you going to give me my ROI in what I'm asking?
It's a reality of the industry that, we fully acknowledge. And you're right. I mean, between Google and Facebook, and now Amazon is sort of in that trifecta also. They hold a tremendous amount of data. We used to always say on the agency side, like YouTube is the ocean. I mean, it's infinite. You can go on forever. You can find as many people as you want there. And absolutely, the technology and the data that they have is something a publisher or platform like Mitú will never even, we can't even compare. And so I think that's where you need to think of the distinction. And so that hardworking media of just sort of getting the message out there and targeting it to audiences, which, I mean, that's an interesting thing we can come back to. We recognize we're not going to compete with that. We're not Google. We don't have the ocean. And so, it's challenging when I think advertisers come to us and expect that, like they treat us the same as, a Google and say, well, yes, great, you have Latinas. I want Latinas and I want, this 24 to 29 who are in market for a small crossover SUV. And I'm like, for us, that's probably going to be 5 people. Like I'm not starting with the ocean, right? For us, what we offer is the context. We offer the cultural insight in the creative, and we offer how can we make an advertiser's messaging relevant and resonant and more memorable. And really that's going to be, for us, our value proposition is the content that we can create, and how can we sort of marry the content that we do every single day, that we are watching the data on, that we know our audience loves or doesn't love, and bring a partner into that, because they're not living and breathing that type of content nuance the way that we are. But what we're not is those massive media solutions, and we just never will be. It's a totally different, and I think smart marketers know the value of both of those, which is that, yes, a lot of the budget will go to that. And of course, targeting is getting increasingly difficult as cookies are going away and targeting is becoming more regulated. And so for us at Mitú, we feel like that is an opportunity still, because we are a contextual partner. So then, where I think context at one point, maybe it's ebbed and flowed, but it can taken a back seat. Now that's important, right? And so even on Facebook, you can't target Latinos, you can't target by ethnicity anymore. But if you target the Mitú audience, which is something only we can offer, like it's a pretty good chance you're reaching a Latino on social media, because if they're engaging with our content, they're either very connected and relate to the culture, or they are likely Latinos. So it's an interesting time in terms of, even we don't have that access anymore to say, there was a time when we could say 80% of our audience is Latinos and maybe 15% are, African American. Like we don't even have that insight anymore. That's been taken away from everybody, but what we do have is just still the connection with the community and the audience.
Yeah, we are living in interesting times for target market audiences. And
completely,
I find it really interesting that they take it away, but yet the hashtags are still there that have millions of followers. And so this is something I'm very intrigued by, because I did work at Google and I know the biases that happen behind there a little bit. And so it's very interesting. So my question in this media sphere for you, and you've been in the space for so long, is how do we come together as a media platform or a network of platforms or media and say, yes, we'd like to partner with you, but we want to hold you accountable to the right messaging, and we should be at the table for these conversations versus here's a business case, here's this, okay, and now, off into the sunset they ride and then they come back.
Yeah.
I think that there should be an end-to-end process. I mean, this is just my opinion, but I don't know if that's what really happens, because I'm not in that world of view. But on the technology side, I see the execution piece, and I think there's a lot of bigger discussions around that. And I'm so happy that you're in this space. And I want to talk about those tables because you have just recently been invited to that table at Mitú as a chief brand officer because of your insight and because of your strategy. So let's talk about that.
I do want to go back to You made an interesting point in that, again, how do we sort of challenge and question, even some of the really big media solutions that are saying, sure, I can give you Latinos, I can give you Hispanics, right? And I remembered you triggered a flashback for me, on when I was on the agency side and, dealing with Google and big reps. And obviously I was always focused on multicultural. And so I would ask in particular for Latinos, like, okay, so the biggest method that Google had for reaching a Latino audience was Spanish language, something, it was music, right? So it was through YouTube and music. And so it was Spanish music affinity, basically. And I just remember thinking, like, such a gross oversimplification. Like, that's not an exact science because, there can be people that are not Latinos that like Shakira or like.
Right. That are mariachi diva fans that, that
right. And also Latinos don't exclusively like Spanish music. So if I'm a Latino who's not listening to Spanish music, you're going to miss me, right? And that's where I think it is important that we sort of be at every table, like you said, be in the tech companies, be the engineers that are really programming how these decisions are made, because again, I don't come from that world. I know there has to be statistical relevance, or there's practicality to all of this. And so I trust that that was the best option. But I think that there's also a danger in that advertisers or agencies, when they're doing their work, frankly, it's some are just looking to check the brown box and say, all right, the targeting's done. I don't have to deal with it. I don't have to think about it. I don't have to think critically about the nuance and the messaging or the creative. Like, it's easy. It's taken off my plate, right? And so that's checking the easy box. And the ones that really, I think, would see the best rewards are like, sure, you can do that for the reach, but understand that it doesn't end there. Just like you can buy Univision and, do your upfront there and spend money. But if you just stop there, you're stopping short, because again, in a world of digital, there's a whole generation now of people that are not watching broadcast television, that are not watching novelas anymore or Spanish TV content. So there's a responsibility to think about, in the general market, we would never say just like, all right, I'm going to do one Google buy and call it a day and I'm done, right? It's a monolith taken care of. And that's sort of the unfairness that we see still play out when it comes to multicultural marketing, and this is for all multicultural segments, not just Latinos, but also the Black community and the Asian community it's work sometimes to find and to think critically. And there's nothing better than having somebody at the table who can say like, well, yeah, let me tell you about my experience. Not to say that it should be a focus group of one, but that you have to take into account the various experiences and media consumption habits that people have, and realize that you can't just say like, okay, Spanish music, done. Like I'm covered, that's stopping short, and it's lazy, to be honest.
Oh, totally lazy. It's totally lazy. I mean, that's why DEI initiatives, and I mean, you just only have to go to LinkedIn to see the shit show that's happening there right now about, like, why do we have to keep educating you? Yeah, completely. Come to the table, let's work together, but I'm not doing all the work. And also you hold the keys to that platform, and I want to see where it's going. I want to see, show me something that I can learn from you, and I will show you things that will help. It should be reciprocal, because you were in that space of advertising. Technology is playing a huge impact on how these messages get targeted to us. And I've been hearing a lot of people in the podcasting space that are Latino or, African American or, part of the social justice Black community, when they hear their podcast on these bigger platforms and they just slap an ad on there, it's like, I didn't want like Doritos on my
that association.
Yeah, I didn't want that on my, I'm talking about social justice, health equity, and they're putting a Doritos commercial on my podcast. I mean, this is the misalignment and the distrust that immediately begins to happen. This is where I'm going. And that's why I think it's huge that you're holding this major, I want to say, data network of information that you're going to be kind of cultivating into a new arena. And so let's talk about that. I'm getting excited for you. I'm like, how can I do more for you? I'm very excited.
I'm so excited.
And it's going to play a huge role in our community. So let's talk about that. Like, tell me about what is next. Like, what's the big evolution that's going to happen with you here in that room? What are your thoughts? And then these 8 segments that you have?
It is currently, let me see, I need to count my children. So it's currently 5 brands. It's currently 5 brands, but yes, we are actually expanding to have 3 more. So that's some other news that I'm happy to chat about. So yes, part of this new phase is actually some recent exciting news that actually our parent company, Go Digital Media Group, acquired NGL Collective, which is, another big Latino, legacy company. They have seen success a lot more, in the media space, like sort of, advertising media. It was started by David Chattel, and also John Leguizamo is a partner in it. And then there's other partners in it. And so we are joining forces, and we're super excited. It's a really great complementary fit to Mitú. So again, where Mitú has had so much success in consumer facing content and on social, NGL has had other strengths in the media space. And so, yes, my promotion comes together with that acquisition. And so I am being promoted to Chief Brand Officer. I have been serving as General Manager for about the last year on Mitú, which means just wearing a lot of hats and putting out a lot of fires. But it's been really fun, and I've gotten to know, every aspect of our business, which I'm so grateful for. And so this next evolution, I will be focusing on really cultivating those brands that are consumer facing, that live on our social feeds, on all these platforms. We also have, our owned and operated site. We are Mitú.com, and there's plans for a few other platforms in which to launch. We've been asked about CTV and about audio. And so there are plans for that. With the NGL acquisition comes Hispanicize, which has been, an event.
I love that. I love that conference.
And then Latina Moms and Hispanic Kitchen.
The Hispanicize.
So all of that comes under Mitú now. Yeah. So we're super excited. So that will be, it'll be a Mitú event moving forward. And we're very excited to kind of, expand the families.
That sounds amazing. I mean, I see lots of wonderful things. And the fact that your partner collaboration with NGL and the John Leguizamo being a part of that, I just remember seeing him at Hispanicize before the pandemic in Los Angeles. And what he was saying was absolutely relevant about the community, that what's happening now, that we need to really form and hold accountability to companies about our narratives. It was very important what he said. And I just think that's going to be a great partnership for the next evolution of Mitú. And I'm very excited for you because representation matters, and you're going to be at that table, the C-suite. And I think it's going to be fantastic. And I'm so excited for you. So
thank you.
You're welcome. So we're going to close it up here, but what would you like to leave the audience with here about Mitú, and what can we look out for? I mean, you just said some really big goodies, but what do you think?
Okay, so my takeaway is that I just really think that the important thing is that we occupy space in all fields and unapologetically. And this is where, again, like you said, there's so much talk of diversity and inclusion. And, one of the things that I just am so grateful for, that, I had the privilege of being able to experience this fresh out of college, and now more than ever, is really being able to bring my full self to work, my culture and the quirks. And, and I will say that's maybe been a good thing of the last 2 years of COVID, right? Of seeing like people at home and juggling kids and like, that's a very real side. Like, that is a part of who humans are. And for so long, trying to keep up a veneer of just like, we've got to be professional, you have to do this, and like, you leave a certain thing at the door. That is where, being surrounded by diverse and open-minded people and in a welcoming environment, no matter where you work, is so important. And that if someone is in a position of leadership, to make sure that you are creating that space for your employees to bring their entire selves to work. It is important that we occupy space and affect at every level, because when we talk about why don't they get it and why are things a certain way and how come it's so hard to convince people of something, it's because there's a lack of diverse points of views and diverse backgrounds. And that is ultimately going to be the critical change that needs to happen. And that's why we need Latinos and Latinas to get into every type of field, get into engineering, get into marketing, get into, production and entertainment at every level, to occupy that space, bring your entire self, and also to reach back and bring people with you.
Absolutely.
Because I think that is the thing. It cannot be. And that's the thing I love, that is so ingrained in us. Like, we're so community driven. We're always looking out for those around us. We are not a selfish kind. And I think, again, that mentorship and that just looking around and saying, like, it's just a conversation, anything, right? Because people need to see that glimmer, remember that a 22-year-old, a 24-year-old, it's weird to me. Like, I still feel like my mind, I'm stuck in being that person. And I'm like, no, I'm 40. Like, I need to reach back and talk to somebody like that, right? And we have interns right now at Mitú. And I told the team, I'm like, I want to set up time where they can just ask me anything. Like, I want to be an open book. I want to, make it relatable so that they don't feel that someone who sits in a C-suite position is just this enigmatic, unattainable person.
Right.
So retaining that humility and just making space for us to be in every space is what I would say.
Oh, that's an awesome close. Okay, mic drop. Boom. There we go. It's done. I really,
this is so fun.
I'm glad. And that was, the whole purpose of bringing you on is to talk about this representation, especially in the space. There's a lot of momentum and shifting going on right now. So it's a very exciting time. And so with that, where can we find you? Like, I don't even have to say, where can we find me too? Because you just open up.
You can find it. Yes. No, you can completely find it.
Right.
I would hope, right? And definitely follow us and follow all of our new brands. But you guys know where to find us. So, I'm on Instagram. Is usually where I spend most of my time, like a good, older millennial. So it's at Vigil, and it's _VV. So, I'm VV now with my married last name.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, that's pretty much where I'm at. Obviously LinkedIn, and really just follow us on wearemitú.com and Fierce by Mitú, all of our brands. That's where you will see the manifestation of everything we're trying to engage with our community and, really be of service to them and be a reflection of them.
There you go. You heard it first from Vanessa. She's going to spearhead the new evolution along with partnerships with NGL and John Leguizamo and his team and the big events coming post-COVID. So very exciting times. And Thank you for being on this show. I really appreciate it. And I want to hear, we're going to have to schedule a part 2 because I do want to hear about this next level of the 8 channels and how that's going to roll out, because it's a good brand. And I think there's huge opportunities coming that way.
Yes, let's do it. I would love to. I have lots of ideas for our new brand. So I would love to circle back.
Cool.
And definitely we'll keep you guys posted for our 10-year celebration is later this year. So definitely look out for that. We'll be having something at the studio space in LA. So
nice. Well, thank you, Vanessa, for joining us on Latinas from the Block to the Boardroom.
Thank you, Teresa. So great speaking with you.
Gracias. Thank you, Vanessa, for joining us here at Latinas from the Block to the Boardroom. Wow, I am just so floored by the information that we just shared about the advertising, how certain technology platforms just like to bundle us all under one group. And this is where they get it wrong, which I can see the total reason for the NGL Collective and Mitú to come together to become this powerhouse in media and advertising. I am so excited and can't wait to see what comes out of this. In addition, you can follow Vanessa under IG, or the best place to find her though is through LinkedIn at Vanessa, Vanessa, Vigil, Vigil. Gracias, mi gente. Sí se puede.